Why is this cat sexualizing a woman? And now I love her dearly and I would kill for her. Why? Tell me why they're having sex with fruit. Is just a man who is like, I have acquired a cat. It's amazing! And I'm like, that is correct. Cats are amazing. Hey friends, it's Sarah, and today I want to talk about my 2022 year in reading. So, last year I read 215 books and 69,246 pages. The shortest book I read was a children's picture book, which was 32 pages, and the longest book I read was Helter Skelter, which was 689 pages. The average book length was 322 pages, and the most popular or most shelved book was Gone Girl by Gillian Flynn, and the least shelved or least popular book was Canadians on Everest. My average rating was a 3.9 stars, so I had a pretty good reading year, I would say. Both my first and my last review of the year were 2 stars, which is kind of hilarious. The first review of the year was Bones of Ruin, which I just found really slow. I wasn't really engaged in it all that much, but there was still like so much happening. I don't know. I thought it should have been a really good book. I think I would have really liked it, but I didn't. And then my last review was for Reasonable Adults, which I also gave 2 stars, and was actually in my holiday reads video, which I will link up top and down in the description. Like last year, I did like a kind of bracket thing where I picked like the worst book per month and then like faced them off against each other till I got to my worst book, and then same with the best books. But that's a lot of books. That's 24 books to talk about in a video, and I don't think we need to do that. So I'm just going to put up a picture of my bracket up here somewhere, and then I will just talk about maybe my top like 6 or so and my bottom 6, and then it's a lot fewer. So let's start with the worst. We'll work our way from worst to best. So these are like the 12 books that I said were like the worst book of each month, and then I'll kind of go more in depth in some of the other ones. But we have like The Duff, nowhere near as good as this movie. We have The Bones of Ruin, just kind of boring, too much happened, and yet I was still bored. Sorry Not Sorry, characters were absolutely out of their minds. I don't know how they acted like this. No one acts like this. Candide by Voltaire, very vulgar and just a classic I don't really enjoy. It was 3 stars, so like I just read a lot of good books this month, and this was just the worst of the fine books. Portrait of a Thief, different than I expected. I have a whole video about this, you can check it out, but it was just not what I wanted from this book. I wanted more action, less thinking about what other people are thinking. Love and Other Disasters, tell me why they're having sex with fruit. By the book, just kind of boring. Again, another good reading month, so this one was just like fine, and it ended up being at the bottom. The Summer I Turned Pretty, boring, the least interesting part of the TV show. She and Her Cat, why is this cat sexualizing a woman? Secluded Cabin, Sleep 6, incredibly predictable, and I don't read thrillers. 12 Days of Christmas, couldn't buy the chemistry between the characters, it was just kind of weird and boring. And then Reasonable Adults, excusing sexual assault and victim blaming the person who has been assaulted, and then expecting us to forgive the person who was doing the victim blaming. Ick. So my worst book of the year was my actual like last review of the year, which was Reasonable Adults by Robin Lefler. This was 2 stars. It was fine, and then it got to a part where the main character was sexually assaulted by an ex and then victim blamed by the love interest, and then she still got together with the love interest after, and I just could not excuse that in the book, and so it got 2 stars, and I was just so mad about it. I thought it was very callous and irresponsible thing to write about in a book that was marketed as like a kind of holiday romance contemporary, and it was not great. That was my worst book of the year, mostly just because of how offended I felt they'd written a sexual assault, a victim blame, and then a lame-ass apology, and we're supposed to forgive the love interest for the fact that he was like, it's your fault that you were assaulted, I can't believe you would do this to me. Anyways, yeah. Whew. But my other 2 like runners-up, if you will, were Love and Other Disasters by Anita Kelly. This one had a non-binary main character, a queer relationship, and it was written by a non-binary author, and it's like a cooking competition show, and I really wanted to like it. I really thought it sounded like it had all the beats that I would love in a romance, and then it just did not. I did a whole video on this one about like why it did not work for me, but it was just like the characters were kind of meh. There was the weird fruit sex scene that I really did not enjoy at all. One of my like main complaints with romances that I don't enjoy is that often the characters make just the weirdest decisions. They just act in a way that no one would ever act, and it's very off-putting to me. And I felt like there were weird decisions in this book that I did not enjoy. But if you want like my full thoughts on it, go check out my dedicated cooking video for this book, which I will link up top and in the description. So my other runner-up was Sorry Not Sorry by Sonya Singh, and this was a 2-star read as well. It's a similar complaint of like, how is this person supposed to be a grown-ass adult and make these kind of weird choices? The chemistry between the characters was not really there. Started out like, kind of like, okay, I'll give it, you know, I'll suspend my disbelief, and then just kind of like veered completely off topic, and I was like, I can't. And the writing was not good. So I have seen other reviews being like, it's kind of racist. Like the idea is kind of that there's this like high-level tech CEO, and she's going to like an Indian wedding, and she like has like a fake date to the wedding, and she wants to like get more in touch with her Indian roots. But I have seen Goodreads reviews where they're like, this like idea of like Indian culture is like kind of racist because there are many cultures across India, and it just feels like it's very much marketed towards a white audience, and kind of panders to some of the stereotypes that white people might have about Indian people, and it just really does a disservice to this idea of like connecting with your cultural roots. So I can't comment on that as I am white, but other things about this also did not fly with me, and I did not like the writing. It was incredibly poorly written. I think I read an arc, but the like second half of the book felt like it had not been edited at all, and I was honestly like, how is this going to be a published book without major revisions? The writing was not great. I'm not sure if that was just like subjectively I did not enjoy it, or if it was just like objectively bad, but if you read it, let me know how the writing was for you, if you noticed. Maybe it was just the arc. I don't know. It just, bad vibes. Bad vibes. Okay, a couple of kind of honorable mentions. So one was actually a manga called She and Her Cat, which I thought was going to be super cute. I was going to give it to my friend as a Christmas present, but I decided to like read it before gifting it. Thank God I did, because it's about like a woman who adopts a cat, and you would think, oh, so cute, so sweet, but like then the cat's like, she's so beautiful, I love her so much, and it felt very much like a man imagining he was a cat with like a single younger woman. It just felt weird. I felt like the cat was like sexualizing her. It was creepy. I didn't like it. I think a man wrote this, and it was very uncomfortable. So I guess in addition to men should not be able to write women, men should also not be able to write cats who live with women. I don't know. Maybe that's a takeaway from it. It was not great. I did not like it. Also, The Duff. I had watched the movie The Duff a million times, and it's so fun, and it's like a little cringy, but it's so good. The book is like nothing like the movie at all, and is just like kind of the worst kind of high school drama you can imagine. Everyone was terrible. There was no redeeming qualities to anyone. I hated it. Not good. And then the last one is The Summer I Turned Pretty by Jenny Han, because once again, I watched the TV show and I was like, this was so fun. I love it. I'm gonna read the books now. Tell me why the book is only like 1/3 of the things that are actually happening in the TV show. But yeah, so like I thought the TV show was excellent. And then the book was like one plot line of the like 4 or so that were happening in the TV show. Yeah, it was just watch the TV show. It's so much better. And it has like everything that happens in the book happens in the TV show, plus so much more. But those are my 6 worst books of the year. I did have a fairly decent reading year, so like a lot of them weren't like that terrible. They were kind of like meh. Okay, now let's talk about the best books of the year. We're moving on to a happier time. I will again put up my bracket here, and I'll just do a quick like little summary of the 12 books and why I thought they were the best. So January we have In the Dream House, incredible execution, just a wonderful memoir, very interesting, very different. Loveboat Reunion, it was a really good sequel, very good romance. I will keep reading whatever Abigail Hing puts out. Under the Whispering Door, another TJ Klune book that I quite enjoyed, but I'm trying not to promote his stuff because of his weird inspiration for the Cerulean Sea book and kind of like appropriating indigenous culture, so we're just gonna not talk about that one too much. Transcendent Kingdom, very emotional and moving, and incredibly well done characters that you just feel like all need a bit of a hug. May was See You Yesterday, incredible take on the Groundhog Day trope, wonderful characters, beautiful romance. The Summer of Bitter and Sweet, wonderful Métis representation, incredible just like overall packaging, and a very emotional again and meaningful story. The whole picture, very interesting look into how museums work and the stories of some highly contentious pieces, as well as the idea of like who gets to decide what goes in museums, and why do we steal from other cultures and not give them back their stuff after we have realized we have done wrong. Ragged Company, a beautiful story, lovely characters, and an incredibly important look at the epidemic of homelessness and the humanization of people who are currently unhoused. A Man and His Cat. I sobbed because it's just a man and his cat and how much they love each other, and I cried. If you love cats, if you have a cat, this is the manga series for you. How to Be Perfect. If you don't care about philosophy, like I do not, read this. It's great. It's a quick little summary of philosophy. It's very funny. Also, if you like The Good Place, he talks about it, making it in here. And then we have Seasparrow. How does Kristen Cashore keep writing even better additions to the Graceling universe? I will never know. They get longer, and yet they're still better than the last one. Excellent, beautiful exploration of fantasy as well as like grief and going through very traumatic adventures. And then December's top book was 8 Nights of Flirting, a super cute YA Hanukkah Jewish-based romance. So sweet, such good chemistry between the characters. Also the one where I was like, maybe I should just only read YA romances and not adult romances because they're just, that one was so good. My top book of the year ended up being In the Dream House by Carmen Maria Machado. I think this is just an incredible memoir. It is about her experience of an abusive partner in a sapphic relationship, which is something that's not discussed. Like the topic of intimate partner violence in the queer community is not really talked about yet, and so I think this is, just for that fact alone, very important to read. However, it's also told in little like vignettes of their relationship, and each one is a different like horror movie trope or like concept, and it's just super fascinating. I love the idea behind it. It's very well executed and the writing is just beautiful. My runners up were How to Be Perfect. Again, like I don't really care about philosophy, but I think this is incredibly funny and it is actually stuff that's relevant to your life, and he kind of like makes philosophy a little more accessible, and it's just basically like a crash course, but it's very funny, very thought-provoking, and address a lot of things that like I feel, you know, like where is the line between wanting to act ethically and not being absolutely miserable because you're trying to make the absolute best decision when so many of our decisions cause all these like crazy ripple effects that we cannot control. My other runner-up was Ragged Company. Like I said, it introduces us to a beautiful cast of characters. You fall in love with all of them, and it really dives deep into what it's like to be unhoused and how that affects you and your personality and like how that can change your life. I also appreciated that it talked about the backstories of all these characters who were unhoused and how they ended up on the streets, because they all come from like a wide variety of backgrounds. Everything from like they kind of always have been on the streets to like they had a big catastrophe and like lost all their money caring for a sick spouse and then just like couldn't deal with the grief and all the debt. So it was just beautiful. Everything Richard Wagamese writes is beautiful. I think he's one of my favorite authors. I love everything he writes. A couple other runners-up that I want to discuss that I thought were, like I said, Seasparrow by Kristen Cashore. She just keeps getting like deeper with these books in this series. So like it is still an incredible addition to the Graceling series and has all the really interesting fantasy elements, and she always takes us deeper into this world she's created, but it also deals with more like intense themes. So in this one, the like party is coming back from a different country and they end up stranded on this like big Arctic kind of place and have to like walk back home, and it's just like this incredible traumatic experience. It explores these relationships between these people who are on this trip together, and like some of them are friends and some of them aren't, and it's a lot. And then also the trauma of like going through that and like watching people die that you like couldn't really help and having to like care for yourself, and that's it's just beautiful. It made me cry. I only have one tab in it, which is surprising, but I think just like all of it's so good that I could be like, this is like a moment that I love. It was just, the whole thing was beautiful. And it also surprised me because it follows Hava, who I like sort of didn't really care about until this book, and now I love her dearly and I would kill for her. It also talks about trying to like be in a relationship after having incredible trauma, so that was neat too. I feel like that is a theme though in her books. There's a lot of like relationships where it's like letting yourself be loved after undergoing trauma. See You Yesterday by Rachel Lynn Solomon. Every book she writes just gets better and better, and I'm so excited to be following her career because I just love everything she writes. But as you can see, maybe, I don't know, we'll see how the editing goes, I've got lots of tabs in this, but I thought this was a very unique take on the Groundhog Day trope of like being in a time loop. And it's kind of got like a in enemies to lovers sort of thing where they are like both of them are stuck in the time loop. Think like Palm Springs. If you've seen the Andy Samberg movie Palm Springs, it's kind of like that, a little less jokey, and it is teenagers, but they are in university. So that was really cool too. I think this one is a great kind of like on the cusp of teenager and adult, so at like that university age. It's great YA, like older YA book. There is a little bit of sex in it, so it's a little more mature than like maybe a 12-year-old should be reading. It's really swoon-worthy, and they just have like a great connection, and I just loved it. It was excellent. Rachel Lynn Solomon, also up there in my top authors. And then Summer of Bitter and Sweet. I've talked about this one before a few times. I think it's in my favorite Indigenous reads video, which I'll link again in the description and up top. The story is excellent. It talks about very important topics. It has Métis representation. I love the like lost best friend who comes back, and the rekindling of their friendship. But just like also the whole like package of this book is incredible. So it's got these like this like trigger warning at the beginning that is very like lovely written. It's got these descriptions of like how they make the ice cream flavors at the beginning of each chapter. It's got these beautiful like beaded look, like the covers like that. She's got beautiful beaded earrings. Each chapter has a little beaded flower at the top. At the back we've got beaded things. So it's just like it's the complete package. It's the whole experience of this book that is also so incredible. And I just love that it was like kind of local, like it takes place in my province and they reference my city in it, and I'm like, I feel like a little celebrity because no one ever writes books that take place in Alberta. Well, I mean, no one writes books that take place in Canada and then in Alberta and that mention Calgary. Crazy. Crazy. Is this what Americans feel like? Like if you live in New York or Los Angeles and everything is written about your city, you're just probably like, yeah, whatever, it's another book set in New York. They're all set in New York. But here I'm like, it's set in my country? It's set in my province? Oh my god! And then also like, quick little shout out to a man and his cat, which I did end up sending to my friend instead of she and her cat. Because that's what I wanted out of a cat manga, is just a man who is like, I have acquired a cat. It's amazing! And I'm like, that is correct. Cats are amazing. I love it so much. It's so sweet. There is like more now of a story in later installments of it. There's like more of the story of like the man, but the first couple books are just him being like, cat! And then the cat's doing like normal cat things and you're like, oh my god, what an amazing cat. So it's great. Those are my best and worst books of the year. Like I said before, like my worst books were really, most of them not that bad. It was just like, this was kind of meh compared to my other books that I was like, this was amazing. There was a few books that I was like, I hated this, but most of them were like, this is fine. And my best books were like really excellent. A good like mix of books in there, which I'm really happy with. So let me know what your best and worst book of the year was. I'm interested to see what y'all have been reading. Thank you so much for watching this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you next time. Now go read a book. To the customers. Anyways, I've now said TV show too many times. Where has it gone? Is it here? It is here. I don't know what side it's on. I'm always wrong. I used to be like, man, how come John Green can't figure out what side the thing comes up? It's so easy. It's just on like, you know, the right side. And then I started filming YouTube videos and I was like, it's because my right side is not my right side. I know until I get in front of the camera.